Welcome to the Chase Hudson Show, a podcast dedicated to inspiring you to become extraordinary. Each week, we sit down with top-tier business owners, real estate investors, and influencers to inspire you to build your legacy. It's time to level up. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Chase Hudson Show. Today we have Sam Taggart, who is the founder of the D2D Experts. Sam is such a stud. This is an episode you guys will definitely want to listen to. Sam has so much knowledge. His story from door to door to founding D2D Experts and everything in between. We talk about being effective, scaling, sales, a lot to unpack. So I'm excited for you guys to hear this one. And with that, let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Chase Hudson Show. Today we have Sam Taggart, who is the founder of the D2D Association. He created Door-to-Door Con, is the author of ABCs of Closing, a podcast host, public speaker, and the overall CEO of the Door-to-Door Experts. He has built a 7-figure consulting business in under 3 years, has consulted over 150 businesses nationwide, and is passionate about creating, implementing, and growing door-to-door programs. In addition, Sam has founded 2 successful tech companies, Recruit-O-Matic and Vanilla Message, and is an avid real estate investor and crypto investor. So with that, welcome in, Sam.
Oh, thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, of course, man. Glad we could do this. This will be fun. So the first thing I usually ask my guests, Sam, is talk just a little about your upbringing, man, to hear, maybe influences in your childhood or teenage years that help form you or mold you into who you are today. Be interested to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday was Father's Day, so my dad had a big impact on just my upbringing. I mean, he was a serial entrepreneur. He did land development he invented and created patents, like OGO Bags was one of the companies he started. And,
wow.
He has his recent one was PMD. It's like a microdermabrasion tool. So like I was always up around the entrepreneurial roller coaster of like made a ton of money, lost a ton of money, made a ton of money, lost a ton of money. And luckily he'd always kind of had this frugality to him. He wasn't flashy. He drove a Camry, you know what I mean? Like he was just like kind of the millionaire next door. And he always taught us how to work, and like anytime my friends, like I grew up in Park City where everybody's super rich and friends are driving Tacomas in high school and Hummers and you're just like, what the heck? And I'm like, Dad, I want a car. He's like, you got 2 legs? You know what I mean? Like he had this mentality of like, you've got 2 legs, but he also had this mentality like, you don't need to go to college. You should go like learn skills. And so, I remember him taking me to the golf course and we dove for golf balls and sold golf balls. And then my brother, he's 10 years older, so also had a lot of influence from him where he was very extrovert, very salesy, always was in some MLM, always was in some sales thing. And so I'm kind of idolizing this 10-year-old brother. And one day he takes me out, I'm like 11. We went and sold those magazine coupon books and he gave me 50% of the profit and I go knock doors. And then I was like, wow, this is like fun. Like, and he was like, yeah, like you keep knocking and, just kind of leveraging me. And my cousin ends up knocking doors at 13. I find him, he was painting addresses on the curbs. And he was like, hey, you want to come out with me on a Saturday? And that Saturday I made, a couple $100. And I was like, wow, this is great. So I just started painting curbs and did that all through high school. Actually ended up having 11 of my buddies working for me. We called ourselves the Guttermen. We made stencils for our shirts and had our own like little ledger. And the other day I actually found a Google Drive folder with all of my Gutterman accounting details from high school. And I was like, wow, this is like pretty impressive for some like 16-year-old kid just like hustling. Yeah. And then the other day I was in my storage unit. I found this bag. I would crochet hats and sell them in high school. And I crocheted this little bag and put all my yarn in it. And then I'd go to class and just sit there in class crocheting. And my teachers would be like, why are you doing that? I'm like, I don't know. When else am I going to knock out these hats? I got like 30 orders. And so I just had a list, like a waiting list of people waiting to get my hats. And so just as a kid, like I just always had this little young hustle. And when I found out you could go knock doors and sell alarms, I was like, oh, cool. Like how much do you make? Great. That's more than I'm making curbs. Great. Let's try that. So I graduate high school and the next day shipped out to sell alarms. And so never really had like a W-2, never had like a normal, I guess, kind of upbringing that most kids you'd think would, but kind of slingshotted me into the entrepreneurship I am today. So
Yeah, that's great. I love that, man. And it's very contrary to like my upbringing, where I was, my first job was at it's called Bahia, or they're now kind of Costa Vida, you know, but I was W-2. And then I went to college and just kind of did that. So I always appreciate like people who have more of that entrepreneurial background. I'm trying to ingrain that into my kids now. And I do have kids, Sam?
Yeah, I got 3 and a stepkid.
Okay, there you go. Are you doing stuff like your dad did? Are you trying to?
We have a nonprofit called Street Smarts. So this Saturday we just hosted a Taggart Classic, which was all for the nonprofit. So basically it's not just for my kids. It's like we did a hot chocolate stand this winter. We've done like all sorts of stuff. I mean, my oldest is 8. But like we do a youth program where twice a week we have a mentorship class for high school and kind of middle school age kids to teach them how to start small businesses, door knocking. So we have whole online training centers. We have coaches literally designed to say, let's go teach them how to go, you know, car detailing, window washing, lawn mowing, curb painting, whatever. And we've got courses all built out for them. So anybody listening and you've got high school kids, plug them into our program. It's all a charity, and it's basically to mentor that young hustle, because it's called Street Smarts because it's like they learn book smarts in school, but like parenting, and it's just hard. It's like, where do you plug your kids in to give them that street smart skill? And I learned that luckily at a young age, and it's helped slingshot me to where I'm at today. So we're trying to give that back to kids that are actually like into that.
I love it, man.
Pretty
Street
cool.
Smarts. Is there a website?
StreetSmartsU.com.
StreetSmartsU.com.
Like the letter U.
Awesome. So. Love it, man. Yeah, I'll go check it out, because my kid, he's 4. I mean, or we'll just turn 5. So still pretty young, but I'm trying to just break the mold, because I feel like, again, for me, it was like very regimented W-2 college, go get a big boy job, and just kind of, and then again, I kind of mentioned before we started recording that this podcast is kind of trying to inspire folks that were kind of like me, that maybe didn't have that exposure to you know, hear guys like Sam Taggart and be like, wow, there's another route, there's another path that I can take.
My 6-year-old, there's no way he will do well in high school, and there's no way he'll probably go to college and do well. Like, I already know he's like absolute sales dude. Like, he's not even like an athlete. Like, he should be an athlete, and maybe he'll fall into that, but like, you can just, he wears suits everywhere. He's like always trying to dress nice. He's always talking about money and making money and all. Like, I'm just like, dude, you're just gonna be some business dude. Like, let's just like own the fact that you fight the grain, you never do what you're told, but you are so manipulative. Let's harness that into the right direction. And I'm like, that's a good thing, where most people are like, you're not following the drift, you're not like in line. And I'm like, okay, how do we like leverage what his like natural ability is here?
Yeah, love that. That's great. So going from childhood, teenage years, you mentioned right out of high school you started selling. Was it with Vivint? Is that who
it was actually a company called Platinum for a couple of years, and then I ended up switching to Vivint.
Okay. Did you go to college at all, or did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I did like 2.5, 3 years of college.
Okay.
I got my associates.
Yep.
So I can say I have my degree. I'm like, yeah. But I didn't finish my bachelor's, and there's a point where, I was just going to college to recruit for sales. So like in volleyball class, like all the fun classes, I was in like dance and golf, and I'm like, I'm never going to finish this at this pace. But I just wanted to be around like athletes and people that would be, networked for recruiting and building teams. And I realized, I was like, this is just stupid. Why am I showing up to class? Like, and when I was making, $500,000 every summer, and my teacher's making not even a fraction of that, I'm like, well, like, and there's stuff to learn, but I just like, my head wasn't in it. But when I dropped out, I kind of made a commitment. I said, no matter what, I'm going to drop into education and drop out of college. And I think a lot of people miss that element. Like, they're like, oh, I'm just going to, like, school's hard, I don't like doing this. It's like, no, learning is so important. It's just making sure you're intentional about what you're learning and how much you're putting into it. And my budget was $30,000 when I was 23, when I dropped out. So I said, I'm going to spend $30,000 a year on learning. And ever since then, I've actually upped it quite a bit.
Yeah, that's great point. And I think college teaches you maybe not the book smarts that you need, but some of those softer skills, communication, hard work, things like that. But to your point, education, but making sure it's the right type of education. Maybe you don't need to go learn about art history, but you're learning about sales, or you're learning how to, start a business, or taking a course, or what have you. So I think what you've done is awesome. So you said your first summer right out of high school was with a group called, was it Platinum? Sorry.
Yep.
Okay. Platinum. Were you doing alarms?
Yep.
Okay. So why did you choose that company? Why alarms versus solar versus pest? What was your thought process that first year?
It was interesting. My sister had a friend that was trying to recruit me for pest, and my brothers knew the owner of Platinum. And I remember sitting down with the pest guy, and I was like, well, where do you make more? He's like, well, we make more in alarms. I was like, well, why are we talking? And I was like, why do you do this? He's like, well, you sell more per, and tries to come up with this argument. I was like, but where do the guys make the most? And then I just went there. Like, I was like, well, where's my bigger opportunity? And that was my decision then. And, later on I ended up switching to solar, did that for a couple of years. Same kind of logic. I was like, man, a lot of people are leaving to solar, but not coming back to alarms. There must be something there. If they're making $3,000, $4,000, $1,500 a deal, and I'm only making $500, I'm like, but they're like, oh, but you don't sell as much. And I was like, no, like let's change that mentality. And I think a lot of people, it's all about complacency. It's like the same sales time. It takes the same amount of time to sell a solar deal as it does an alarm deal. The problem is you just make so much so people get so complacent. So then they work less. And I was like, that's the work ethic problem, not an actual sales cycle problem. So.
Yeah, it makes sense. And so after I guess, how was that first summer? I mean, was it an immediate success? Were there any, was it challenging? Was it like, I love this?
Yeah, it was hard. I mean,
it's different for
door-to-door is hard.
Yeah.
Like anybody that's knocked doors can like appreciate the tribe, right? Like, and I remember my first day though, I happened to do 5. And I've never heard of anybody do 5 alarms their first day. Like that's still in my books, the record. And it was just because it was dumb. Like it was, my mentality was like, I was doing curbs, I was doing 10 a day. Why wouldn't I be able to do a lot in alarms? And then everybody comes to me and they're like, holy crap, like who's this 18-year-old kid? Like, what is he doing? And I was like, what's normal? And they're all like, well, if you could do 1 a day, that would be absolutely amazing. And I was like, oh, okay. Like I just did 5 and I don't even know what the freak I'm doing. I never even used an alarm. And the next week I did 5 the whole week. And I was like, wow, like, why'd you guys tell me this? Like, and I think a lot of like the learning there, and then I had, 3, 5, and I struggled for quite a while. And to a lot of people, I was doing great. But to me, I was doing bad because I did 5 in 1 day, my very first day. Now I had training. Now I'd been to meetings. Now I'd been to, you know what I mean? There was like, I knew what I was actually selling, but I got worse. And I think there's something you said there is like, we overcomplicate and we don't realize that a lot of our success actually has to do with the belief of being successful more so than the tactical elements of being successful. Does that make sense? So it's like, how often are we overcomplicating success? And it took me a whole year to do 5 ever again in a day and to rewrite my brain back to like, what is our true potential? What are we actually tapping into? And how much interference are we actually needing to try to get away, right? Like, it's like, there's just interference to success, not so much limitation or inability. It's just like, where's the interference?
Yeah, love that. That's a great point, Sam. Why did you switch over to Vivint eventually after the first couple of years? Was there like a catalyst there? Or was it just, contract or?
No, it was like what I knew Platinum year 1, you could tell the culture had just kept going backwards. It was the cool, sexy thing that year. And then I was like, where's all the top guys? Like I finished 8th in the company doing 167. And I was like, that's not that great in retrospect to the industry, in my opinion. And so I was really chasing like, where am I going to get the biggest learning ability? And I knew I wanted to switch. I knew that the company was like not doing that great. And it turns out they went out of business because they got wrapped up into a Ponzi scheme right around when I was shopping and saying, hey, I want to switch. And then all of a sudden they're like, no, stay. And then the next week they're like, oh, sucks to suck. No one's got a job anymore. And so everyone ended up having to go either to Vivint or Pinnacle. And I had just switched right before that. I was like, oh, hey guys, I'm here already. So welcome back.
Yeah.
So it was pretty funny. But the big thing is I hated Vivint. I was like, no, I'm not going to Vivint. They suck. They're the big orange giant. Like I literally was so against everything they stood for. And then once I actually started dissecting them, I was like, okay, like they have like really good culture. They have really good systems. They have really good competitions. And I, went to a team where I ended up doing 300 the next year and doubled my sales. And I was, 8th in the company at Vivint that year. And to be 8th in the company, you've got to be, doing 300 accounts, not 167. And then I started to compete, eventually became number one, you know what I mean? And it was like, I just wanted a playing field to where it pushed me. And that was the place I felt like at the time was that.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And then it sounds like later you transitioned to a group called Solstice, is that right?
Yeah.
So yeah, what was kind of the push out there?
That one was more family related. Like at the time, I'd always struggled in marriage, and anybody that's done entrepreneurship or summer sales or just had a hustle, like, I can imagine, like, I guess I can't imagine a 9 to 5 and then you just shut off work. Like, to me, like, entrepreneurial world, like, work's tough to shut off sometimes. And, so I was like traveling all the time, doing blitz trips, this and that. And I was like, I just need something in Utah where I can try to work on my marriage and, save this essentially. And, so I decided to switch into solar in Utah, and everybody's kind of like, no, it doesn't work here. Go to California, go to New Jersey, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, but I don't want to move. Like, I love Utah. My family's here. That's where I want to grow my roots, and chose to do it and did really well. Like, I was kind of one of the pioneers of Utah solar. It had its good heydays. There was Blue Raven, Brio, a couple big companies back then. And, yeah, it was a fun journey. And I wanted to go somewhere where I could have a bigger impact. I hated the bureaucracy and the freaking politics of it, where it was like, if you were here 16 years and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, I'm done with this. I want to go fresh plate. So I went to a place where I could open up like blank canvas and play entrepreneurial within a company. So it was zero. There was no salespeople. It was like, go be the VP and create it, the pay scales, the trainings, the competitions, everything. And I wanted to have that experience, but a little less of the liability. So I got mentorship, got kind of a blank canvas, got my own economics within a company. So I call it like an intrapreneur opportunity. And I think those 2 years was such a key learning experience for me. Because like anybody that sells at Vivint or is like, I'm a 1099, doesn't make you an entrepreneur. It's like you're just paid a commission to go recruit and sell. Sure. That's it. You're not running marketing. You're not running finance. You're not running, you know what I mean? And then you just jump into the entrepreneurial world. It's like, boom, you get your face smacked in thinking you were an entrepreneur. I had a 2-year kind of mentoring entrepreneur opportunity where I had to be accountable to profit and loss. I was paid based on profit and loss. I was looking at the actual controller and meeting with them and figuring out commissions and trial and error. And I changed comp plan 10 times. I had to build software. I had to go, you know what I mean? And I had a whole team, a multi-million-dollar company that was able to support that. And I think those 2 years of learning was so worth, like I could have gone and done my own solar dealer. I could have gone and, there's a million places I could open up my own company, whatever. But I was like, I wanted a 2-year opportunity to like learn again before I then slingshotted. And at that point, when I started D2D Experts, it was kind of like just natural. Like it was like, okay, I think I'm ready to be my own thing, right? Like I'm okay having a 10-something year, 12-year sprint of 1099 pay where I'd already know what it's like to eat what you kill. Now I'm ready for like, okay, legal, accounting, all the other things that come with entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I love that. And I've said that, and we've talked about this with other guests. It's like, if you're coming out of school or earlier in your career, it's like, it's so pivotal to go get a job or a role where you can see soup to nuts how it's made. You can get exposure to the legal, the finance, the sales. So even though you're working for somebody else, it's setting you up to execute at a higher plane. Because I think a lot of guys, and me included, right, is like, I came out of school, like I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I was, 5-6 years working for somebody else. But to your point, the value and the experience you gain, even though you're working for somebody else, it's so critical to when you do make that jump. Because if it might take you 3 or 4 times as long if you just started by yourself.
100%. I think people discredit that. Like and I would look for entrepreneur opportunities. Like I would try to still have an eat what you kill mentality. Like I just hired a new director of marketing, right? And I looked at him and I was like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Do you want salary and just like safety net, or do you want some kind of upside to where you're like, you die by like your actual results or you live by them? I was like, I'd love to pay you $300,000-$400,000, but I'm not going to give you a base of $150,000 and pay you $300,000-$400,000. I'm going to say you either get to go perform and it's take a rip on all the performance and increase, and I'll show you a simple way we can map that out, or go be an employee. Which one do you want? And he took the employee route. And he's like, well, in a year, can we revisit it? I'm like, yeah, but then I'm not going to be as aggressive because I gave you all the stuff on a silver platter. If you came in and said, pay me no base, pay me no safety net, but let me show you and let me be involved in the high level meetings. Let me be a decision maker. Let me be an A player for you. I'd have been like, damn, that's the right hire. And I had to fire my VP of sales simply because he came in, I want a $200,000 salary, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, dude, like I'm a door-to-door guy. I've never had a salary. Like, don't make your 200 grand. I was like, fine, I'll test you out for 90 days. He didn't perform. And again, I'm like, cool. Now you just lost your job simply because you tried to negotiate some high pay when your contribution didn't represent what you wanted to get paid.
Yep.
Like it's a simple, if you're an employee, you've got to look at what is the contribution and are you replaceable? Are you irreplaceable? And is what you're getting paid more or less than what you're actually creating value for? And I think so many people over create their own value and they're like, oh, I'm worth, I should just get a raise and I should this. I'm like, show me how your salary of 80 grand actually makes me more than 80 grand. Like, and if it doesn't, then you should be worried about your damn job. Because I think the only safety, real safety in any job is actual, like you've over exceeded whatever they're paying you, or you're an entrepreneur. Like for me, I'm like, oh, there is no safety in a W-2. Like people make job cuts all the time. Like all the tech companies just laid off so many people. I'm like, you thought you had a safe job because you were a W-2. I'm like, no, you just got laid off. Now you're on a job search again to try to convince somebody else to go jump into their job where then they might have a hard time and then they'd let you go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. I had another guy on here who's talking about the same thing. It's like early on, you want to have this argument of pay me what I'm worth, but you should really be able to be willing to take less pay to learn and grow so that at the end of the day, you can be paid what you truly are worth, after you've gotten that experience.
I want my employees to come back to me in 6 months and say, look what I did. Let me show you factual reasons why you should pay me more. Yep. Instead of them be like, dude, everybody loves me. I'm here. It's so great. Like, haven't we been such homies? And I need a raise of 6% or 10%. I had a gal ask me for a $50,000 raise. And I looked at her and I said, are you crazy? Like, you're talented, but where do you merit $50,000? And then I was like, great, I'll give it to you, but I'm going to give you 2 people's jobs. And if you can't handle it in 90 days, you're fired, or you're going to keep your $50,000. And she was like, really? And I was like, yeah, here you go. 90 days later, you're fired. Sucks to suck. You did 20% of what I told you to do, and you couldn't handle what an actual $50,000 looks like more. I get the same amount of work done as probably 10 employees. I did 10 times more sales than the average individual at Vivint. I did 400. The average guy does 40. So it's me is the same as 10 individuals. And I think we underestimate the human effectiveness of one person could be the same as 10 people, or one person could be the equivalent of you need 30 people of you to do what one person should do because you are 1/30th as good as an average person. And there are some people that are so ineffective, so unproductive. I fired a guy on Friday and I was like, dude, you literally did nothing. He's like, no, I've been at 60 hours. I can't sleep and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, show me what you've done. It would take me 15 minutes to do more than what you've done in literally 90 days. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, let me pick up the phone, make 5 phone calls, and I'll produce more than what you did in 90 days. He was like, what? And he tried to fight me. I was like, well, I don't want to compete with you. I'm going to go start my own thing. I was like, good luck. It'll take me 15 minutes to do what you did in 90 days.
Love it, man. Well, going down this path a little bit. So from effectiveness standpoint, you've obviously had a ton of success, but what are maybe a few things that you do either daily or scheduling or how you produce that you think could be replicated, or advice that you'd have for people trying to just have results?
Well, let's take let's take virtual employees. I'm going to talk about an assistant, and then maybe weekly planning. Let's take those 3 things. So I think having a team of minions overseas is very effective, meaning I might micro position out where a simple task of like, you just did this video, right? Well, all I do is upload it to Google Drive and never touch it again. Like if you're the one that has to upload, I don't even upload the stuff anymore. I'm like, here you go. Like it's gone. But now it goes to some dude, he cuts it up, puts it on all the platforms, and it costs me, I don't know, $5 an hour. of some dude in India, or I have a guy in Serbia that's been with me like 6 years. But like, you have this team where if I'm the one that has to go chop it up, has to go upload it, has to go come up with the tags, come up with the caption, come up with I'm spending an hour doing that, where I wake up and it's already on Instagram. I'm like, oh, dope, there it is. I don't know what I post today. You could go to my post right now and be like, I don't know what I posted. So that's a system of, whether it's in here or overseas, but I'm willing to spend the money to have that kind of virtual system. And that could be for booking flights, that could be for uploading content, that could be for scheduling, it could be for whatever. I have a system for that, an assistant. So tomorrow I have this guy flying in from out of town to install $50,000 of stuff in this podcast room, blah, blah, blah. Well, I have to get this these 1 1/4 inch piping installed into the ceiling so we can hang all the cameras and stuff. And I'm like, shoot, I need to get all that stuff. Well, I could go to Home Depot and I could spend an hour trying to figure out how many of these flash and So I send my assistant and I say, hey, call the Lowe's and Home Depots and figure out where all the little brackets are that we need to buy, then go get the 2x4s, then go paint it. And it just saved me like a whole day of random errands, to washing dog, to this. Like, I don't want to be doing that stuff. And I think that so many times you get so bogged down into just calling customer service to fix your credit card fraud that you can't get any of the high value things done. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I call my virtual assistant, or my personal assistant will actually call the credit card company and fix the thing. And if she needs to hand me the phone and say, verify, cool, next. It took me 30 seconds. It didn't take me 30 minutes on hold with some dude in the Philippines.
I love it, man.
And
that's
I don't
so
know,
good.
like, people don't count how many times they're doing that phone call a day.
Yeah, I've heard like the sooner you can kind of fire yourself in your business, the quicker you'll scale, right? And like just outsourcing the activities that you've had to do historically that take time, and just understanding like what is my time really worth? What is Sam Taggart's time worth compared to, the tasks that you're doing? And so I love it, man. And that's something we're striving to do. We do have a virtual assistant in the Philippines, but I do feel like she's very underutilized. Right now, she helps us mostly with sourcing new opportunities, investment opportunities. So directly outreaching to ownership groups or other property owners to try to shake something loose. But you're giving me ideas, so I love it.
Oh,
man.
I'm talking from copy to data inputs to we just hired a BI guy that's doing all of our business analytics and graphing. We have a Salesforce integration guy. You know what I mean? Like all the little things. I mean, I have probably 12 virtual and then probably 30 in person, right?
That's
so it's
awesome.
like having a good balance. And then I always tell my employee, I'm like, I pay you $40 an hour. So if you are doing $10 an hour tasks, I will pay the $10 an hour guy to free up an extra 10 hours of your time, because it costs me $40 when it should only cost me 10. So I'm teaching my people how to get their own minion overseas.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So good.
And so like, it's scaling. Like, I don't know if I'd ever fire myself. Like, I don't like that time, but I say, what are all the things that are low value? Because if you think about it, like, there's 3 currencies. Is value exchange relationships, which is really hard to delegate. Like, you want to talk to me. Like, at the end of the day, though, I don't need to schedule this. I don't need to all I need is show up, and I can't delegate this podcast, right? So that's value exchange. The second thing would be trust. So trust is its own currency. If I don't trust the Filipino chick to then have a good conversation with the prospects, then I'm never going to utilize her. So if I can increase trust with Filipino chick, and I can increase trust with myself on delegating it and like counting on myself to actually be like, can I put a checklist? Can I put an SOP of what I need her to do? But if I don't trust myself to do that, then I'm low, like the currency goes down. And then time. Time is a huge currency, meaning how much of our time are we exchanging? So Elon Musk has 24 hours a day. Donald Trump has 24 hours a day. You have 24 hours a day. And McDonald's dude has 24 hours a day. Everybody's just utilizing their time in a different way. So if you can be analytical about how much time am I spending, like I have a business meeting today at 3. So they put an hour meeting on my calendar today. And I told Shalise, I said, Shalise, like, that meeting should be 15 minutes. And she's like, what do you mean? Nobody thinks to put a 15-minute time block for the calendar. They naturally put 1 hour meeting. I'm like, do we need 1 hour to sit there with this biz dev meeting? You got 15 minutes, bro. Just present me, yes or no. Cool, move on. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to waste an extra 45-minute shit talking, because that's normally what we'll do. Because if you allocated an hour, you're going to procrastinate the meat and potatoes until usually the last 15 minutes.
Right.
So if I've only got 15 minutes on the calendar, you're not procrastinating meat and potatoes. You're actually just eliminating all the shit talking.
Right. Yeah, I love it, man. And we're going to dive into this a little bit later, but while we're talking about it, you mentioned weekly planning and scheduling. So are you doing, I've heard different ways to do it, but like there's time blocking where you're saying here's some buffer time, here's like deep work time, here's like meetings. Are you doing any of those tactics, or like how are you laying out your schedule or your week in your world?
So Sunday planning is vital, meaning I spend 2 hours every Sunday. I have a Sunday planning checklist. I go through each category of life. I have a lifestyle design that I review. Like, it's very organized. And I found that if I can now preset most of my week, kind of front load it, and I'm like, okay, these are the things I know I want to get done. And before I talk work, I go family and personal first. My morning routine, when am I mountain biking? When am I hanging out with friends? What's my date night? What's my kids' time? Like, I'm very intentional about filling my calendar with that so that nobody else can be like, oh, I'm going to schedule a meeting for you. It's like, no, he's got his date night. Like, they can't. It's already blocked off. Or I think sometimes we try to put a dollar amount to that where it's priceless. Priceless time with kids. You're like, yeah, I could be in another sales meeting. Yeah, I could be in another converting this or recruiting this or whatever. But it's like, that's priceless. So it's like Saturday, we're going to Lagoon. I already know that today going into this Saturday, I'm not like waking up Saturday morning and being like, what are we doing this Saturday? I was able to already plan. Okay, I got my kids this weekend. What are we doing this weekend? Lagoon, cool, that'll be fun. Thursday night, I know I'm doing a breathwork session on a date night. Like, I know what's happening already, and it's Monday. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then I put like Sam time. So actually my assistant, she finds about an hour to 2 hours every day, and she just blocks out. It says calls, but reality is like, it's just Sam's time where nobody can schedule anything. That way I can catch up. Cause like, if you look at today, I have literally a coaching call on the way down here to this. Right after I get done with this, I have another coaching call on the way back up to Salt Lake. And then I have a film time. Like, I have every hour of today is blocked off, but an hour of that is blocked off is actually just says calls, and it says Sam, where I can catch up on the 100 emails that I've gotten today. My phone will probably fill up with 45 text messages I need to nail out. And then I've got projects that I'm trying to work out. So that hour is so vital, but then also the mornings. I leave time for creative time in the morning. So I have a 2-hour morning routine plus a workout. So if I've got 30 minutes of creative time, it leaves my brain, because that morning, before I look at phone, before I look at emails, before I look at work, I've got time for me to start moving the needle, like creatively, whether it's working on the app that we're developing, whether it's working on writing good content, whether it's working on, does that make sense? So it's like something I can do to build the creative juices, because that's where I feel like I've got most innovation.
I love it, man. And that 2-hour routine in the morning, is that reviewing your weekly plan? Is that meditation, breath work? I mean, what are some of the little things you're doing kind of on a daily in the morning?
It's like super mapped out. So I set the environment, then I do an affirmation, breath work, then I do my journal, then I do my reading, then I do my meditation, then I do affirmations. No, I already do that. Send love, shake the emotional tree, hike. Then I come back and creative time, then I go work out.
Love it, man.
I mean, that's like the connect. So I have what's called like a mini, elite, and plus version of that, because it's not every day do you have 2 hours.
Sure.
So I have a 20-minute version, a 60-minute version, and a 2-hour version.
Yep.
And depending on where I'm at, because I travel a lot, so I might have only 20 minutes and I have a condensed version of that. Or if I'm home and I'm in my backyard and I can go on my hikes and I can go, do my cold plunge, I can do all the things I want to get done, then I've got my 2-hour version.
Yeah. How do you feel like doing that? I guess, how long have you been doing that, and how do you feel like that's helped you or impacted you?
You feel like you get your time, meaning like during the day, it's the rat race of giving everybody else your time, because I'm answering calls, I'm filling out meetings, I'm scheduling, departments and managing employees, all that stuff, right? The morning is like, don't mess with me before 9. Like, yeah. At 9 I come on, but from 5 to 9, like, don't talk to me, don't mess with me. It's like, I got to give and feed myself, so I'm full and I can overfill into everybody else during the day.
Love that, man. Well, going back to your story, Sam, so you do a few years in summer sales, you transition over to Solcius. Okay, so at what point are you thinking, all right, I guess, how did you come up with the idea for door-to-door? Why education? Why not just keep jamming in the solar space, making $500,000 a year, doing that thing? What was it about wanting to start your own deal?
I felt called. I mean, this sounds weird, but like God said, do this. And I don't know how to like, I'm sitting on a rock on a 3-day meditation retreat in the desert fasting. Like day 2 hits, I have a vision and it's like, you need to throw this event. I'm like, what's this event? And it's like, you know, me speaking on the stage, it was like clear as day. And I was like, no, that's never going to work. And I like fought it for a few weeks. I was like, no. And it was like, you need to host this event. Where most people, I think what happens is they get like washed up. They're like, sick of knocking doors. I was like, I like knocking doors. I actually miss it. I would make hella money for the first 3 years of doing this business versus where I was. Like most people leave out of like, I'm not making money. I don't like it. I'm like, I'm making hella money. It's on autopilot and I like it. Like, so I left out of like, God's like, you need to do this. And I was like, damn. And then I couldn't do both. I couldn't be at Solstice and be doing this because I had to be Switzerland. I had to be neutral in my mind. I was like, well, everybody sees me as a threat, so they're not going to buy into what I'm trying to do. And the mission was to unify, up-level, and bring honor and integrity to the door-to-door space. And I had to make some changes. And I tried, but I was like, dude, I have to go 2 feet in. And it was a year and a half of making $0, living on savings, building this thing. And then I started paying myself $5,000 a month. You know what I mean? It was like a grind to everybody calling you being like, when you coming back to sales, bro? Like, you know, you could make that in like a month. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, yeah, that would be really tempting. Like, you know, I'm just like, cool beans, bro. Like, as they're like driving their cool cars and I'm over here just like, I got this. And there were some hard moments. There were some nights where you're just like, all right, I just need to go on a blitz trip, fill the bank account again. You know what I mean? And I was like, no, I'm committed to this. I'm not falling back to like, I knew if I went back, like I'd get sucked right back into like the cocaine of door to door. Like it is such easy money. It is so quick. And you're like, no, I can't do this. I'm going to build a business. I'm going to build something that's long lasting with enterprise value. And, yeah, that was kind of that journey between 2017 and 2018.
Yeah.
It's kind of that transition.
Got it, man. So just, timeline really quick. When did you graduate high school?
2008.
2008. Okay. So you were selling for, call it 9-10 years and then you started D2D. Okay. So yeah, man, tell us a little bit about the initial thesis. So you're sitting there, you have this vision, you're at an event. I mean, obviously door-to-door experts is all about training, implementing, trying to grow teams. Is it really a consulting business at its core? Yeah, its core is really all elements of verticals of coaching. So online, in-person, masterminds, events. You know, we host 20 events a year. Like we have an online training center, 30,000 students through that thing. Like, you know, so it's consulting at its core though. Like we help on sales, leadership, and recruiting. Those are our 3 pillars. And we've helped 30 different industries from real estate all the way to painting to, I mean, all sorts of stuff. And what's wild is it hasn't changed much. The avenues and the ways and the industries, etc. But it's like sales, leadership, recruiting, unify, up level, and bring honor and integrity to the door-to-door space. And since that stemmed tech companies, relationships, affiliates, like all sorts of things. But like the mission's still the same thing. I get off a call or I had a conversation with one of the executives at Sunrun, and he was like, why would I come speak at Door-to-Door Con? And this is our 7th year. Like I'm looking for speakers for year 7. We've had 3,000 people there last year. Jordan Peterson, Ed Milet, Tim Grover, Tom Billio, like all sorts of amazing speakers, right? And he's like, well, I don't know where this aligns. And I simply was like, why are you still fighting this? The mission is to up-level the door-to-door space, and you are one of the biggest door-to-door sales arms. Like, what is not getting through y'all's heads? And there are people that just don't want to collaborate. They have a scarcity mindset. And I will throw rocks at people now because I'm sitting there going, can you not think there's enough to go around, and can we not play ball together instead of an I win, you lose game? And from the get-go, like year 1, Vivint hosted an event down the hall with Grant Cardone for free at the same time as D2D Con 1. Jeez. And they had hashtag only Vivint in the background and said, everyone come to this. And I'm sitting here going, this is exactly why we are doing this. Is hashtag only unity. And we started a new viral thing that said hashtag only unity. And why don't we play at a higher capacity where it's not like
let me steal this guy and like backstab you and mudsling you and shit talk you and unethically sell like this and give this a bad name. There's a reason why door-to-door gets a bad rap. And it's for that 5% of those companies that just bully and I was just so pissed at this, and I get like emotionally heated on this because I'm like, there's too many people that are stupid in this industry and they don't invest in real estate. They don't do things with their money and they're buying Lambos and they're broke and they're stealing. And I'm like, this needs to stop because it's such a beautiful opportunity. And if we don't treat it this way and we don't help and support it, and that little roofer that's in Oklahoma to the pest guy that's in Georgia to the dudes out of Utah, I don't care. Is we need to come together and do it the right way. And that has been the mission from the get-go. And there's too many people that don't know how to do it, don't do it right, and they're missing out on a massive opportunity. Because if you're not making multiple six figures and you're in the door-to-door space, I don't care what industry, windows, real estate, whatever, like there's some opportunity to grow in this.
Yeah, man.
And we're here to support it.
I love it, dude. I love it. And I think specifically here in Utah and obviously across the nation, there's such a need for something like what you guys are offering, right? To bring people together. Because growing up, right, I mean, BYU, you hear the stories about the Vivint guys who were just stealing grandma's money on the door and the competition and like all the things that just kind of, it turned me off from like, I never did a summer on the doors because you just heard stuff, right? My brother Logan, he's with Rid Pest, so he's been doing it for a while. And so he obviously he knows your name, and he's heard a ton about you. But I think it's such a great thing you're adding. I want to ask in terms of the idea you had and kind of the competition within your space. So kind of the consulting, training. Was it something that had another group been doing it? It sounds like it's pretty new. We created the Ocean. Yeah.
And now since then, other people broke off and copied and this and that, which is fun. I'm like, good, it's flattery. Mm-hmm. And I just like it. I like competition. I'm like, thank you, somebody to try to smash. You saw me at Vivint. I'm like, I'm number one, damn it. And so if there was like for 4 years, there was no competition. And I was just like, well, let's try this. And one of our core values is innovation. So we look at ourselves as the biggest competition. I don't even look at everybody else because I'm like, we're miles and miles ahead. But the fact that people kind of like, oh, I'm going to copy this and I'm going to spin this off. And I'm like, oh, good, I'm going to bury you. Like, and if people go to theirs versus ours, I want them to be like, oh yeah, not even the same ballpark. And it's what fuels me, and it's fun.
Yeah, love it, man. Yeah, talking about the D2D Con, the event. So you've been doing it for 7 years?
This will be our 7th in January,
Okay, in January. Yeah, what's that like, man, putting on an event? 3,000 people, getting speakers. I guess I'm just curious, because in the real estate space, there's obviously similar type events where you get people in the door and you're getting everyone jacked up. But what is it logistically like to be able to pull something off like that? I mean, what does it cost you? Is it a revenue source for you? Are you just losing money on it? I don't know. I'm just kind of curious to hear a little bit logistically how that's gone for you guys to get that where it is.
I had never been to a conference, let alone had put on a conference. So it was kind of one of those things, talk to the entrepreneur. It's like, just send it. I think there's so many people that are like I just hosted a golf tournament this last weekend. Never really hosted one. I've been to a couple, but I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that they just didn't let us do the shotgun start like they thought. I was like, well, pivot, whatever. Didn't look good, but figured it out. And we had plenty of moments like that at Door-to-Door-Con. We lost money for 3 years. And so when you're sitting there, so many hours, I remember year one, it was me in a garage with this guy and we were painting the letters that go on the stage until 2 a.m. the night before. You know what I mean? You're getting no sleep. And I didn't know how to effectively delegate, or I didn't have the funds to essentially hire the people that I needed to. And, you're just trial and error. I mean, my mom, my sisters, my brothers were all the registration people. It was just pull the resources you need to get the thing off the ground. And still to this day, my family shows up and helps. It's a very much so all hands on deck. A lot of things go into it, and I have an amazing team luckily now to where I've been able to focus on a little bit more of the higher level stuff, getting the main speakers. This year we have I guess we're announcing here soon, so by the time it comes out, it's fine. We have, Sean White, Lance Armstrong, Phil Heath, Chris Voss, dealing with some high net worth people, multi-champion Olympians and you know what I mean? So I like to work with those kind of people, talk through the culture of the flow of the event, high level vendors. We had 80 vendors this year. We hope to have 150. so it's a logistical thing. Like that's what I was saying. I have overseas people, I have 30 full-time people here. Like it takes a team. It takes some energy to like really put that on. And luckily throughout the year, we have other things going on too to keep people busy, but
yeah. I love it, man. I've heard great things about it, so I'll have to go. I should go, right? I mean,
yeah, everybody should go.
Yeah,
like, it's not, even if you're not in door to door. I mean, Sean White, Lance Armstrong,
yeah, why wouldn't you want to
80
go
other speakers that come, and vendors and networking and real estate and all sorts of tax. Like, it's just a really cool. I mean, people have been to a lot of conferences. I've been to a lot of conferences. Like, there are a few that I'm like, the energy there. I mean, Ed Milet to Jordan Belfort to some of these people have been like, do we speak all over the world? And they're like, your conference is freaking sick. Like they like call me. They're like, hey, can I speak again? Like,
I love that.
I'm like, well, so it's pretty cool. Like our audience is fire.
That's awesome. I love it, man. Well, going back to the initial year and a half where you were getting D2D off the ground, what was that process like? I mean, were you just knocking doors at Vivint or Altera or where other sales companies trying to sell yourself as a consultant, saying I can go train your reps, I can help you guys recruit? I mean, what was that first year or two trying to just get your business going?
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely the sales guy.
Was it just you for that time? Pretty much.
No, I had some team. Like I had a couple people. They were on salary.
Okay.
I mean, that's where a lot of the money was going back. Like that's the thing. Yeah. Like it would be easy to be a solopreneur. Be like, I'll sell it, I'll coach it, I'll manage it. But to scale that is like not fun. Like it's just kind of like you're on a hamster wheel. And I knew that the goal wasn't, I'm creating Sam Taggart Enterprise. I'm creating D2D experts. So I was firing consultants and coaches. I was training. I was hiring salespeople to then start selling. And I was trying to figure it out. Like it was a lot of like, from video production to marketing to selling to fulfilling, and definitely that first year and a half was going through a lot of trial and error and hiring and firing and trying to get your first employees to be like everything but nothing. And you're just like,
yeah.
It was a lot.
Yeah, love it, man. Sounds like you guys obviously have been super successful. What's next for D2D? I mean, been around since 2018, coming up on 5 years now. What does the next 5 years look like for you?
So we're launching this year a human development system called Expand. It's been a 1.5 year tech project. And it's basically designed for coaches and businesses to better expand the lives they lead. So it's a leadership tool that does 12 softwares in one. I mean, from LMS to coaching, like communication, Zoom, to group messaging, to goal tracking, assignment management. It's like every coach's, consultant's app dream, because most of them use 7 different softwares and they have to have different logins for every one of their clients, and they have no way to bill and no way to track and no way to build a community in an effective way. And that'll come out this year. And the design is to break out beyond just door to door, but help all things coaching and consulting. So that'll be really cool.
Love it. I love it, man. And yeah, I mentioned earlier in the intro that you founded a couple of other tech startup, or Recruit-O-Matic and Vanilla Message. Are those platforms you guys utilize in your business?
Yeah, so we use Vanilla all the time. I mean, Vanilla is awesome. It's a texting software. It does AI texting. And then Recruit-O-Matic we actually just sold. So it's a recruiting ATS. And so this will be our third tech project. But I think this will have by far the biggest legs. It's definitely very innovative in our realm of coaching and training.
Yeah. So obviously it sounds like you guys would use it yourself.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we have hundreds of businesses that already use us as the training platform. So we will just migrate those hundreds of companies over and then obviously scale it to be more broad.
Yeah. Would the end game be to also exit from that?
Yeah. I mean, it's like any business. I think a lot of people, they don't build their businesses in a sense of having real enterprise value and, run that for 5 to 10 years. And, I mean, they have some lofty goals there, but if we don't sell, we don't sell. But I want to make it a profitable thing. I think a lot of people in the tech space, they build it to not be profitable, where we're going to be profitable day one and make it a cash cow or make it something that somebody wants to buy. Either way. Man.
Have you guys ever had to raise money for door-to-door tech? That's great.
I self-funded the whole thing.
Yeah, love it, man. That's great. Well, touching on money, so it sounds like, I mean, since you were in high school, you've been making pretty good money, sales. You mentioned making about $500,000 a year, and things have gone well. How does Sam Taggart think about money from a personal standpoint? Like, as a tool, investment, like when you obtained wealth, I mean, how did that change your perspective? How have you looked at money in your life?
The relationship's always changing. I mean, the money relationship is a thing, just like a spouse relationship. It's like, I'm sure that relationship's different after 5 years and 10 years and 20 years. I think as you grow and start to get more money, it's hard to almost even remember days when you were broke. It's hard to remember when it was like, you know, which toothpaste to buy, and you're looking at them and you're like, that one's the cheapest. And you don't like, you're all about the cheapest thing. Now it's like evolved into like, okay, I want something that's quality. Right. And I mean, my dad, literally, we were joking yesterday, like not even joking, like last week, he took my nephew to a date to the DI. Like he still goes DI hunting and shops at like thrift stores. And, you know, and I still think I have this frugal mentality, but I also have this like, what's the return on dollars, right? And realizing that there's so much abundance of money. Like the more you make, the more you start meeting people that make a lot more than you. And then you're like, oh man, like they talk in millions, they don't talk in thousands. They talk in, you know what I mean? Like it's a whole different conversation. And it takes an evolution of network and an evolution of experience to do that. And, you know, luckily I was really the cat that was smart. I drove a Kia all through my Vivint years, and I was cheap as hell, like my dad, shopping at thrift stores, and put all my money into real estate. Well, luckily it's been like 10 years of like land and milk and plenty in real estate, and it's like everything went up. And so, you know, taking a couple $100,000 and investing it into real estate every year, compounded, has now turned into millions. And it's like able to strategically move and make sure that I have a good value to loan ratio, and, you know, do 1031 exchanges and keep leveling up. Like, people forget the compounding element. And I look back and I'm like, man, me making the same dollars as the other sales guy next to me, but me putting that 10 years of the compounding interest versus that guy that bought the boats and the nice trucks every year, I'm like 50 times more ahead of that guy. Like, it's like not even funny. Like I look now and I'm starting a fund. So this year we're launching our first fund because I've started to realize there's so many people that don't know tax. They don't know investment strategies. They don't know how to go find deals. And so I get deals thrown at me every day because I'm always getting deals. Like, you know, when you start networking with big real estate people, whether that's in commercial or wholesale or Airbnbs or multifamily to, I mean, I've done storage units to mobile home parks to, I mean, I've done all sorts of stuff. They always know that you say yes. So then they always hit you up more. Yeah. So I've been in the habit of like, yeah, sure, why not? And I'll throw 50 grand at this random tech project, or I'll throw 100 grand at this, or 250 grand at this. And when you start making good active income, all the people are like, oh, he's an investor. Where I think you never get on that investor list, you never get the deals going to you. So I just was like, man, I have like more deals than I have money. So it's like, why don't we start pooling that, helping other people place their money and give them good vetted deals, and have some cool partners like Kent Clothier is a partner on the fund right now. And
cool.
Some cool things happening in the works.
Yeah,
right now.
I love it, man. So I'm sure you know Dave Allred and those guys. They have Axia and they're doing their fund. I mean, is the idea, I guess, similar where you would help guys in your network, maybe outside of your network too, outside of the sales world, but pool, you know, commingle funds, and then you'd kind of be an allocator to other opportunities. Yeah. So if, let's say Park West brought you a deal, say, hey, multifamily deal, 150 units, whatever, we're raising $8 million. You could, a
100%.
sliver that could come from the Sam Taggart fund.
I made one post about a little Airbnb and needed to get 150 grand. And within like 30 minutes, it was gone. I was like, damn. I like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, wow, like there's so many people who are like, I have money and I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And I realized that I have, for the last 15 years, done really well with my money and made really smart ones. I've had a few misses, you know, you're just like, damn, I lost 250 grand. That sucks. Yep. But I think that's the thing, is like, I was willing to lose the 250 grand, but 9 out of 10, I made money, right? Like, so it's like, if you're not doing action and you're not willing to get messy, like you're sitting there hoarding it. You're like, I just don't know what to do. And then you end up making less because you have so much cushion that your productivity goes down, your active income goes down, because you're like, well, I got so much money I don't know what to do with. And so why go make more money?
Right.
Where I've been like, live broke. Like, I don't want more than 10 grand in my bank account at any given time. Like, I'm like, live broke. But it all lives in the investments, where most people live broke because they spend it on dumb little liabilities.
Yeah, I love it, man. Such good advice. Well, real last question, actually, Sam, for you. And this is something I ask most of my guests. When you think about success in your life, you know, maybe it's in the business, outside of the business, just in general, you know, how do you define success or a life well lived?
I just wrote a book on this. So the Self-Experience, go check it out. Experiences with an X. It's on Amazon or our website or whatever. That will answer that in a way deeper context. I mean, hence, I wrote a whole book on it. But I think when people can live their life, they can experience themselves. I think success is finding your truth and your success and your self-experience. And that could be making 50 grand a year, but you're happy as hell. Like, I think too many people chase this artificial success and they live everybody's imposter's wants, meaning what's the imposters that keep projecting their wants on you and you subscribing to those instead of really checking in with self and saying, what am I passionate about? What gets me excited? What makes me happy? And when you can distinguish the difference between those, that's when you really try to find your success. And I think society has actually created an artificial success that too many people subscribe to. And I think not enough people self-reflect and saying, what gives me fulfillment? And I travel probably once a month to some different country. You know, I host a Taggart bucket list mastermind. So if anybody listening wants to get on one of our trips, we go to Africa in August. We go to Norway, Northern Lights, and dog sledding and cage, like lives with the ice castles. And we go to Lake Powell. Like I'm always hosting epic experiences because like that's the stuff that we all hope to do, but then we always procrastinate. And I'm like, no, like we just did heli skiing in Canada. Like it's the stuff that you've always wanted on your list. And I'm like, live the stuff that you want to be doing, do it with the people that you want to be doing it with, and find like what gets you excited and put a boundary around the things that take those things away from you and be like, you're literally costing me my peace. And so one of my mantras is like, what costs you your peace? And be adamant about finding things and getting rid of those and saying, I just live in peace every day.
I love it, man. Well, I feel like we're just barely scratching the surface of everything you have going on, but I really appreciate your time, and there's no better way to end. So thanks again for being here, Sam.
No, thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Chase Hudson Show. If you liked what you heard, please leave me a review and subscribe to this podcast. Reviews really help us to find better guests and to improve the overall quality of the show. If you'd like to connect with me directly or want to learn more about investing in real estate, send me a DM on Instagram at @officialchasehudson. Again, we really appreciate you listening, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.